Paul Coggins.
And I'm Jennifer McCoy.
And together we're going to talk about doctors in the crosshairs, the Department of Justice's scrutiny of the medical profession. Healthcare fraud cases are at a fever pitch, and now we find that docs are in the dock. Courts have by and large upheld the convictions of these doctors, but we're here to give you a second opinion on that. So our agenda is pretty ambitious for this presentation. We're going to talk about the key agencies, looking at the medical profession, the key statutes involved, the trends and Department of Justice priorities, defense strategies, and finally, post-conviction relief in terms of both appeals and pardons.
So turning to the key agencies, this does not cover all of the agencies that touch on healthcare, but we of course have the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, and their Office of Inspector General, the OIG, which implements the Anti-Kickback Statute and imposes administrative sanctions and monetary penalties. They have jurisdiction over abusive business practices that occur within Medicaid and Medicare provision of care. And then that, of course, leads us to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, who has authority to implement the Stark Law. Now, when regulatory kind of stopgaps fail, then we're over to the Department of Justice, who is obviously charging these regulatory and other defenses criminally, which we'll talk a little bit about. I'm sure everyone on this call is familiar with kind of the flurry of executive orders that's come out of the administration. One of those orders, the May 9th order, is on the over-criminalization of regulatory offenses. And so in theory, you would see a drop in some of those HHS referred cases that go over to the DOJ for criminal enforcement. And they obviously have within the DOJ, the U.S. Attorney's offices, the FBI, the DEA, who comes into play when you're talking opioids, FDA issues even. And then more recently, we've seen an uptick, and I think we'll continue to see an uptick in state and local government agencies being involved in the healthcare field. So within that, you have state attorneys general and state health departments, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that plays out in terms of state offenses or, well, you have the Travel Act, and we're going to talk about how that actually, you're seeing state offenses charged federally.